Good morning, everyone, or good afternoon, depending on where you are based. Welcome. We are so excited to have you today. It's going to be a great hour. Welcome to Scale for Success, engaging your customers and expanding your capabilities, presented by Target Accelerators. My name is Nina Terrero, if you're feeling spicy or you've had your espresso today, and I am excited to moderate and help lead today's event. As we think about getting started, just a few minutes for a quick welcome, and then we're going to have a fireside chat featuring some very special guests, and then we're going to leave time for plenty of Q&A. The floor will be yours. Please go ahead and send us your burning questions via the Q&A chat box, and we will answer them live today. This time is all about you, and we are excited that you have joined us. Thank you. As we think about our why and our North Star at Target, it really is about joy. It is our purpose as an organization and mass retailer, and that smile, yes, the music was crushing it, but honestly, the fact that our North Star is joy, it really does come from a genuine place of wanting to really help all families discover the joy of everyday life. And it's actually a big part of the reason why each and every single one of you was invited here today to this event. Each of you is a bold, a brilliant, and innovative founder in your own right. And as you scale your business for success, there is room and opportunity for you to think about how you might one day be part of Target and helping us deliver a relevant assortment that helps all guests discover the joy of everyday life. That said, our mission as Target Accelerators is to provide access to the type of network and education and resources that can help you scale your business and grow your brand. It's why we do events like this one. It's why we pour so much into our website and our newsletter and our online learning center. Thank you for being here, for showing up for yourself, and for letting us be a part of your journey. With that, on to some introductions. As I mentioned, my name is Nina Terrero, and I'm lead pipeline manager for the team. I'll be moderating today's fireside chat, and I am joined behind the scenes by the brilliant and kind Erica Kupser. I didn't know this, but I guess she could have a side gig as a DJ. That music was absolutely incredible, set the vibes just perfectly. But Erica touches many aspects of our work and how it comes to life. We're also joined today by Spencer Walker, who is Director of Activation and Growth on the Target Accelerators team. He's actually been at Target for nearly 14 years, and prior to his current role, he held an assortment of roles such as Senior Product Engineer, Senior Strategy and Operations Lead, and Brand Management Lead. And among his other achievements, he has designed and developed, get this guys, over 1,000 products at Target with 7 patents. He lives in Minneapolis with his wife and 3 little ones. I'm also super geeked out about having Dan Schaefer of Native Pet join us in conversation with Spencer. Dan is the founder and CEO of Native Pet, a high-growth, digitally native pet supplements business based in St. Louis. Go St. Louis. Founded in 2017, Native Pet is one of the fastest growing brands in the pet category, and it's grown at least 2 times each year since its launch. Founders, can you believe that? 2 times each year since launch. Native Pet has become an omni-channel brand and successfully launched Target as its first retailer in 2022. And spoiler alert, starting this fall, their products will actually be across all of Target stores. That's nearly 2,000 stores in Target. So again, if you're part of today's event, please go out after this and look for Native Pet at a Target near you. Native Pet has also launched in other national retailers such as Petco and Tractor Supply. Before launching Native Pet, Dan worked for the Boston Consulting Group and earned an MBA from the University of Michigan. Super smart guy. He lives in St. Louis with his wife and 3 kids, and in his free time, he loves spending time outdoors, all things food and cooking, and supporting other entrepreneurs in their journey. And I do have to shout him out too. He was a member of our programs back in 2021. So he's a proud Target Accelerators alum too. Thanks everyone for joining us today. All right, so as we get started with our fireside chat, I gotta know, guys, can you tell us just a little bit more about your background? We heard your bios, but can you tell us a little bit more about your background and, why founders? Why be an entrepreneur? Dan, can you go first?
Yeah, happy to do it. Why an entrepreneur is a great question. I have asked myself that late at night plenty of times over the years, but it's been an incredible journey. It's been extremely rewarding. I actually always knew I wanted to be an entrepreneur, so this is the realization of a lifelong dream. My dad is an entrepreneur, and it's just something that has been in my DNA. And so I was a little kid selling lemonade and anything I could get my hands on. So it's been the realization of a lifelong dream for me. I also spent 10 years in the corporate world, so I definitely value the flexibility and freedom that it has brought to my life. It comes with an increased amount of responsibility. There's no responsibility like raising kids or running your own company. And you just don't get that in corporate in the same way. The buck stops with you. But all things considered, it's been an amazing journey. I empathize and want to support everybody on the call who is undertaking that journey on their own time.
I love that. And note to self, a little lemonade stand can lead to big dreams. Like as a mother of two, I'm going to note that. We might do that later today.
My kids are already like selling stuff. Like my daughter's
Oh,
tried to sell me, she's 7, tried to sell me a bracelet yesterday, and I said it's way too expensive.
I was
You're
going
gonna
to
have
say,
to
what
sell
was
me.
the markup
Yeah.
on that?
What's my willingness to pay?
That's a good question. We should actually dig into that later. Well, Spencer, you've had an incredible career, but why founders and why be part of the team, with that express mission to support founders?
Yeah, it's been an amazing journey at Target. Like you said, 14 years. I never thought I'd be in this position. Coming out of college, being an engineer, designing product and home and wall decor. But I think it's two things. As I've gone on this journey, there's the merchandising excellence side of, creating something that resonates with people, something that flies off the shelf, something that changes someone's lives or solution based. And then there's supplier diversity. As those two things come together in this role on the accelerators team, how do we make sure we create equitable experiences for our partners, but also creating something on shelf that our guests see themselves, whether they are Black, Latino, Asian, within the LGBTQ plus community. That's something that gives me joy. When I think like to Dan, little Dan selling lemonade, aspiring or inspiring the next entrepreneur to see themselves on the shelf. There's something to be said around intergenerational presence. And so a 12-year-old starting their own lemonade brand is amazing. We have one of those on our shelf as well. And as you think about inspiring the future, like this is why I'm in this role. I'm a people person. I'm watching the chat fly. There was someone from Mississippi, go Mississippi, I'm from Mississippi. It's everywhere. It's nationwide. So entrepreneurship is something that inspires me. I may not have the guts to do it, but I can be a supporter and an ally as you go through that journey.
Oh, I'm so inspired by the two of you. This is awesome. Dan, honestly, the fact that in your bio you were able to call out, doubling your business year after year since you started, I can only think ahead to like the tears, the late nights, the sweat equity that has gone into, being able to elevate that kind of statistic. As you think about your business and your journey to growth, what are some of the ways that you've thought about continuing to connect with your customer in a way that's proved really meaningful? What can we learn from you?
Yeah, a couple of things just to start. I think we set out to grow rapidly, and so that was the path that we went down, and we've managed the business accordingly. I am a firm believer entrepreneurship takes many different shapes and forms, and like not every business needs to grow that fast. And if your business isn't growing that fast, it's still an amazing business, right? So I never want to, everything takes different shapes and forms. And so I think we wanted to take a big swing. We were in the pet category. That's what we wanted to do. And so that's what we've been able to manifest. But any business that you're enjoying running and is supporting you and is rewarding to you is a worthwhile business. So growth is not the only metric in entrepreneurship. So just wanted to call that out. The other point I want to make is there's this amazingly cheesy analogy that was shared with me early on about entrepreneurship, which is, uses a surfer as an example, which is in business, you can be the best surfer in the world. I mean, the entrepreneur is the surfer. and then the business that you build is your surfboard. But the market and the consumer is the wave. And you can be the best surfer in the world with the best surfboard, but if there are no waves, your business isn't going to go anywhere. And so the trend and the momentum behind your business and who your consumer is really going to be the lifeblood of how big your business can scale and how rapidly. And so from how do you engage with the wave or your consumer, it's about identifying who that consumer is and what type of content and product they most identify with and they can get passionate behind. And so, when I've looked at investing in businesses, I always look at like how authentically can the founder speak to the product and the wave that they're writing. And so I think it doesn't need to be fancy. It just needs to be authentic to what is driving the wave behind that consumer and behind the product that consumer wants to buy.
I'm not going to be able to get that surfer analogy out of my head. When you think about like the authenticity and like trying to understand like what's resonating with the customer, what are some of the tools or even tips that you have for others for kind of identifying those connection points, which can enable them to move forward?
Yeah, in terms of specific tools, I don't have any. I don't know that there's any that authentically exists, but I think social media is really, really powerful. And if you're solving an authentic problem that is unique to you and is a category that you're passionate about, going online and finding accounts that speak authentically to these issues is just a really powerful way to do it. My journey started as a pet parent. I adopted a dog in 2014. My whole experience around adopting a dog made me a crazy person. That being crazy led me to starting the business. Like that's how it all starts. I was in Reddit forums organically, Reddit forums, influencers on Instagram, talking to people in person. And so immersing yourself in the community behind that wave, digitally or in person, is absolutely critical to understanding your consumer.
So I'm hearing a lot of things around listening, whether it's like social media listening or gathering anecdotal feedback. Gathering insights and possibly data to substantiate those insights can help you formulate maybe like that customer engagement plan.
Listening and experiencing. Yeah.
I was going to say, Dan, I feel like a lot of founders have a story, like reason to be. What's the ethos? And for you, it was adopting a dog, probably the whirlwind that came from having a puppy in the house and saying like, hey, something's missing. As I speak to everyone on the call, there's, a lot of data if you're selling something, B2C, if you're having Shopify, if you want to launch a brand, like understand the tools and metrics to say who's buying my goods and how am I speaking to them. And then if you're looking to jump into it, and you're like, how do I validate where I'm going? There's companies like Spins, there's a lot of data out there, market data that says, one that really hit me most recently, health span versus lifespan. And so if you have a product that's going to make people feel healthy and live a healthy life, you can lean into that more versus like, well, if people live longer, lifespan, the conversation is moving in a way that people just want to live the life they want to live. So your product may enhance that. And so if you're aligning yourself to data and insights, try to find the right ones that speak to you, but also can speak to the consumer to then connect the dots. So I love like life learn data, but then also like the data that's out there. It's maybe at your fingertips.
I am not a founder myself, but I'm taking notes in case, again, to inform like my kid's future lemonade stand business. Dan, I'm curious to hear from you, like, as you think about that ongoing exercise of listening to your customer or the guest, as we like to call it in Target speak, how many times did you maybe shift your marketing or engagement plans based on what you were listening? And how did you think about maybe folding in some of those insights into your overall business plan or strategy?
Yeah, it's a good question. I mean, I would say in the macro, you don't shift all that much, right? Like the reason to be and why the business existed. For us, it was highly effective supplements that were cleaner label and used more natural whole food ingredients to deliver that efficacy. That was our reason to exist. No amount of market research or was going to change our reason to be, right? We knew why we were starting. We had a clear mission, clear vision to why to start the business. Now, we've had a million micro pivots within that that have been driven by feedback from the consumer. And that can be, we see a series of complaints in the customer service inbox, or we, look at our reviews on Target.com, and we had one product that everybody said smelled like poopy licorice. Like, nobody wants a product that smells like poopy licorice, so you got to change it. So I think we're always looking for weight behind, number of reviews or number of mentions. Like, you don't want to overreact, otherwise you're just tweaking everything all the time. But we're always listening and finding opportunities to improve, but staying true to the core mission and not letting noise from outside deviate us from why we need to exist and that like DNA of who we are.
I love that. I think, Spencer, one question for you, as you think about what Dan just said with regards to like staying true to the customer needs, again, actively listening, gathering data, how do you think about scaling or growing your capabilities in conjunction with that customer acquisition moment or period? How do you think about those two in tandem? And what have you seen working? And I should say, Spencer works with thousands of founders annually, so he's an incredible, genuine expert on this topic.
Thank you. Whether it's an expert or just genuinely care to provide the right tools. And I think, Dan, you hit it where you said DNA. People can either say DNA, reason to be, your ethos. But when you align on your values, there's a tool called the brand canvas model that I've often referred to. Understand and align yourself with those who have those same values. And as you think about scale, to your question, Nina, who are your key resources that also align to that can provide the right capabilities? Who's your key segment that you're selling this to that will provide you the revenue to pay for the capabilities that you have? But then also, how do you create the wheel, the circle? Whatever you put out there, there's going to be someone who's taking in and has something to say. We all know humans, they're going to say something. And so when they give you that feedback, take it to Dan's point. You should listen to everything, but that shouldn't change how you move in your life or change the brand that you have. It can influence maybe flavor palette. It can influence the social media. It can influence the way that you speak to the people who are engaging, but you have a reason to be. And sometimes that shouldn't waver, but then connecting your manufacturer, your logistics partner, and how you market. Those are the three things I always refer to in terms of scaling and being successful on shelf. If you can get those three things aligned and operating, you can do amazing things. And so scaling the journey may feel like a marathon, but then when you hit it, it's going to feel like a sprint. So sprint with those who are aligned to what you're marching towards, because you're going to go further than you expect.
I love that. The theme around, like, someone put in the chat, Tiffany Lewis, the idea of like sticking to your foundation. Allowing room to pivot and shift, but keeping anchored to, Dan, as you mentioned, kind of like your reason to be, while also, thinking ahead to like, what are those core capabilities that you have to have in place in order to deliver consistently. I am obsessed with the variety and breadth of categories that are represented amongst the attendees today. We've got food and bev, we've got beauty, we've got pets. This is a little bit of this could be a separate webinar, but for the two of you, like, as you think about the distinction between all these different categories, are there any, I guess, high level notes around like key capabilities that you'd recommend that founders keep in mind as they continue and embark on this growth journey?
Yeah. I mean, if I were to distill it down in terms of, we talked about this yesterday, I'm a product first founder. And so I think in today's world, media gets a lot of love. And so you'll hear content. And that is the new age way to build a brand. And I think there's a lot of value to that. However, I'm a purist and I believe that product matters. And if you don't have a product that's different and better and, nearly perfect, then you have work to do. I just believe that the foundation of good businesses is good product. Sure, there are examples of people with a lot of money that are able to scale commodity products with, through a content engine. But for those of us who, didn't start this business with a lot of money, I think the product needs to speak for itself. And then you build the media and the content and how you communicate that to the consumer later. So that's my attitude. So I think that is a little bit antithetical to what you hear a lot, but I truly believe a great businesses start with great products, and being a maniacally focused product person is the most important thing for early stage entrepreneurs.
Okay, Dan, side gig as a pastor. Like, I feel like I went to church with that. That was, can I get an amen? Like, that was
Yeah.
real. That was real. Well, Spencer, what's your take on that?
And I'm a product person too. I always say like I'm a product guy first, created product, grew up in it, but like now I'll give you like the on shelf real thing as you think about scaling. No one knows your business better than you, or should you know your business better than anyone else. So when we think about business, it's productivity, performance. If you're able to speak those numbers and speak them to existence and then prove your data is coming on shelf, that's how you scale. You count your receipts and you prove them. And so if you're hitting the throughput in terms of sales per store per week, units per store per week, your margins there, you get that ability to be flexible. I'm going to invest here in marketing to drive more consumers beyond who already know my brand. I'm going to invest here to talk about localizing events or invest here about connecting back to sustainability. If you're able to hit those numbers and those metrics consistently quarter over quarter, then it gives you flexibility. Now, let's say you're not hitting it. That goes back to what Dan says, hone in, aim small, miss small. If you're saying like, hey, I need to hit these, like, maybe it's a small incremental growth, have those goals, put those goals in place. Target's really good at saying like, we have goals this quarter, this quarter. What I've learned is that that's something that I've loved to communicate with small brands and emerging brands, even big brands. We're going to hit this amount of revenue by this time. And if you put it on the wall and write it down, everyone else knows it. Yes, SMART goals, specific, measurable, attainable, relevant, and trackable. Make sure you hit those things.
Oh man, so many good takeaways here. Dan, you started small, bootstrapped, your company. What advice do you have for the founders attending as they think about balancing investment, not just financially, but also just like sheer energy and like physical toll of it all with, between like a logistics and fundamental perspective and then the customer growth strategy perspective? Like, how did you think about investing your time and your resources and balancing those two things?
Yeah, I mean, it really all depends what you're hoping to get out of the business, right? And so, we set out to be the biggest brand in the pet nutrition category. So we wanted to be huge. Like that was the goal. That's not everybody's goal. So you gotta ask yourself what your goals are and what you're willing to put in to accomplish those goals. And then there are a million decision trees as you work your way down. I think for us, we had done two things right when we decided to take outside capital, which was a big decision and isn't right for everybody. We had picked a wave, and we had made a highly differentiated product that was better and had very specific, tangible reasons why people loved it. That will make your life way easier if you've done those two things right as a founder. If you're in a category with the wave and you've figured out a product and you've proven that product market fit, then you have a lot of options available to you because you should be selling your product. And then your questions become around scale and distribution and capital. And those are good problems to have. So we were at that point. We had gotten to that point bootstrapped. And I think for Pat and I, we didn't have a lot of personal funds that we were able to use to build the business. We both were married with kids, and we were, our incomes were, necessary for our survival. And so we decided to take outside capital originally, if anything, just to be able to run the business full time, pay ourselves a salary, and be able to have some flexibility. And, we were sharing that risk with a capital partner and in a way like de-risking it to ourselves because we had money to make decisions. We had money to pay ourselves. And so I think people think of, capital as this big, scary thing. You're like selling part of your soul. It doesn't have to be. I think there are two extremes. There are people who will tell you just bootstrap. You don't need outside capital. Or there are people who will say like, take outside capital, scale as quickly as you can. They're both right and they're both wrong. And I think it comes down to what you want to get out of your business, what stage is your business in, and what's right for you personally. There will come a stage in most businesses where outside capital, whether that's bank debt, whether that's equity, like whatever that looks like, where outside capital will definitely make it easier for you to scale rapidly. if you aren't trying to scale rapidly, you may be able to self-fund and scale with the cash flow generated by the business. But these are all personal decisions. There's no right answer. There's no wrong answer. It's all relative to what you want to do as an entrepreneur and what your goals are.
Oof, great response. Well, Spencer, what's your take? Any builds?
Yeah. I'll probably never meet the people from Shark Tank, but I've always said like that's fun entertainment. It's a good way to kind of level set and see how you might talk to an investor. But to Dan's point, like pick the people you want to work with. Pick the people and put that pitch together that hits all the like pieces, who my customer is, what I'm selling, what I plan to do, how might we do this together. At the end of the day, they can say yes or no. But as we think about funding, there's multiple ways to get funding and making sure you scale appropriately so you're not, I know it sounds counterintuitive, overfunded, because then you're kind of having to guarantee to do something. So maximize and level set where you want to be. So where that money goes, you incrementally grow your business and scale appropriately. As you think about funding to land co-packers or land co-manufacturers, put your money where it makes sense to increase your quality of goods if it's manufacturing, to increase your distribution model. Like set that money to a specific thing. So then if you talk to another investor, you have ability to say, we're doing this with that money. Like I said, just like Shark Tank. You want to make sure you're speaking the truth, but you also want to make sure you level set for yourself and accountability for yourself. You may raise that money too quick and someone's like, where's my return? And you don't have an answer. So make sure you're taking it within stride, step by step.
The only other thing I'll add just on that topic is investors like problems that can be solved with money. Meaning, hey, I have so many people want my product. Target wants my product, but I just don't have the capacity, or like I need to get my costs down, and to do that I need to do this. Like, those, or like I just need to buy more inventory. Like those are the problems investors love to solve because the foundation is there, the wave is there, the product is there. It's a scale issue, and so that's when it can really make sense, and when investors love to get involved. When you haven't proven that there's a need for your product, or you haven't proven that your product is unique or different, it's just harder to take an outside capital in that setting. And so you don't need to be afraid of those problems. If that's the problem your business is having, outside capital can be available to you. It's being honest with yourself about where you are and what the money is going to go to. And that is a kind of a soul searching process.
Can I add one more thing?
Oh, of course.
Don't be afraid of traditional lending too. And Dan, you could probably speak on this. Like there's ways to get liquidity in the traditional sense, or even like I remember seeing someone selling your soul, like getting a grant from something, proving yourself on a stage. Like that's okay too. Like I said, step by step and saying like this is manageable for where I am today. Investors can feel like a very scary thing. You may feel like you may lose your ability to say and make choices. This is my slight plug for diverse ownership. 51% means that you own that business, and getting certified to say that you own that business. And so making sure that when you go to investors, they understand that too. And so traditional, non-traditional investing, just pick the right lane for yourself and your business.
On the debt, just be SBA loans. There's a ton of resources. Just be very careful with reading the fine print, making sure you understand the recourse and everything that goes with it. We have done grants. St. Louis has a great program called Arch Grants. Shout out. If you're early stage and you're in the Midwest, you should take a look. We went through that program. I applied 3 times, got it the last time. That was a $50,000 equity-free grant that got us started. It was our first outside capital. We have bank debt, we've done equity. So like we've done it all. It's a great point. And it will really vary by what your business looks like.
Yeah. I love the fact that you both called out that there is a diversity, I think, amongst like the kind of funding sources that are available. And I would just quickly shout out to accelerators.target.com. We actually have an incredible piece from Spencer and his team that's going to be published soon to the site. It's going to highlight a really comprehensive directory of different kinds of loans and grants that are available for small businesses. So stay tuned to that. And Dan, too, one thing you just said that resonates with me is like you applied 3 times for a grant. You didn't take the first no as a rejection. I mean, if I'm hearing correctly, you took it back and you applied again, and you made your application probably no doubt even stronger the next time, and then the next time. So honestly, there's a lot for, I think, even me to learn from that. The power of the pivot and the power of, reframing sometimes that no and making it a yes.
We're on a call full of, hundreds of entrepreneurs. So everybody knows persistence and resilience is like, you can talk about everything else. It all comes back to that. You get a million no's before you get a yes on everything, and nothing goes right. You just got to stick with it.
Yeah. Yeah. I want to make sure that we have lots of time for Q&A, but before we turn it over to folks for their questions, I want to quickly turn to the topic of what it takes to enter a mass retailer. I think it's probably no surprise to anyone in this virtual room. Everyone has that secret dream, that pipe dream of maybe one day getting into Target, and no, we are rooting for you. But all that to say, Spencer, high level, what are a couple of things that founders should keep in mind before they even start to think about having those conversations? In short, what capabilities should you have in place before you have a conversation with the mass retailer?
Yeah. Since you said this might be the last question, I'll try to like round it out and bring something home. I might even bring an analogy like Dan did. So as we think about, I think I mentioned it, manufacturing, logistics, and marketing. Getting those key resources done, locked up, manufacture good quality, distribute on time, and then market to the consumer that you don't have, but then deeply talking to the guests that you already have. There's probably two more additional things I'd add on. Differentiation, which goes back to Dan, like making sure you have like clean ingredients, knowing what sets you apart, and consistently understanding your finances so you can speak on those things to get on shelf, because the buying team and mass retailers are going to ask those questions. How are you doing? Where are you selling? And who's buying? If you don't have those finances together and that data to support it, it is kind of fruitless. You won't get that chance to shine or be put online or in store. And here's my analogy. I'm a soccer player, fan at heart. I was a Brazil soccer fan, still am. But back in the day when they were the thing, 98, Mascherada in the airport, Jogo Bonito, they set the stage. They were differentiating the game. If you're watching today, it's very relevant. If you're watching Copa America or the Euros, everyone's playing that style. They're kind of getting left behind. As much as I love Brazil, differentiation has been left behind. And so you have to stay relevant. You have to do your research. You have to bring the data to say we need to go further or innovate further. So if you have those things put together, still have that entrepreneur mindset, even when you come to a Target or an Amazon or Walmart. Retail success is retail success. I also say that too. We want you to be successful, but we also want you to come to Target one day too. But differentiate and stay differentiated. Push yourself. Never get complacent.
Oof, those are some nuggets for sure. Thank you, Spencer.
Yeah.
Okay, Dan the Man. I'm sorry, I had to play that because that's what you referred to in the chat. Dan the Man. I have a feeling that's probably not the first time you've heard that nickname. But you have achieved what for a lot of folks in the room again is like that penultimate dream, like not just having the door opened, but getting in. And clearly you're doing something right with expansion in all Target doors. But can you just talk to us a little bit, and I imagine we're going to get into this more in Q&A, but can you talk to us about like, how did you land that Target buyer meeting? And like, what do you think, can you tell us about, your approach and strategy once you had that meeting? I imagine a lot of founders will really appreciate hearing your take.
Yeah, for sure. So, I think, okay, so you've identified your wave, you've perfected your product. Do not go to mass retail if you haven't really done those two things well, right? It is expensive. It requires investment. You need to have those two things done. You need to be confident if somebody buys your product, they're going to love it. That's like first and foremost. So don't have the conversation if you're not there and you can't prove it to the buyer. Ultimately, above all else, the buyer needs to believe the product does something different than what's on the shelf today, has reason to believe to be, and that it's awesome. And if a customer buys it, they're going to come back and buy it again, or they're going to leave a 5-star review. Like the buyer has to believe those things. For us, I think we had gotten to that point, and we felt like our customer was very aligned with the Target guest, and we had said, "Man, it'd be awesome to be in Target," and so we networked a lot. So I'm not from Minneapolis. I don't know anybody at Target. I just tried to meet as many people from Target as possible through LinkedIn and doing, weird stuff, networking events. And can you introduce me to this? I'm shameless with what I'll ask, which doesn't always feel great, but you got to do it. And all that, kind of generated some buzz. And then as luck would have it, the Target Accelerator program did a pet cohort, leveraged some of the relationships we built. I wrote an awesome application, which I spent a ton of time on, really focused on why we have product market fit, why our products are different, and why we'd be great in Target. So we ended up going through the program, getting a line review. We launched in 300 stores. It was amazing. So I'm going to get to the point from earlier on brand. We had the product market fit, but we didn't have the brand where it needed to be. It's a lot easier, like you start at a farmer's market or something, and you're the one selling your product. Like the packaging doesn't even matter because they're looking you in the eye and you're selling. And nobody even looks at the packaging in that setting. Then maybe you move online and you have the image, but you have all this backup content that can tell the story. In retail, you get there and you got 3 seconds and it all has to be like right here. And that was something we were not ready for. And just straight up, it was like there was 4 of us on the team at that point. Like it was a lean, mean team. And we had sold the buyer on an amazing product with an amazing story and that customers were going to love it. We launched in Target. We had these like cream tubs, for lack of a better description. And we launched on Target. We go into Target, Pat and I, my co-founder, and we were like so excited to see the product on shelf. And then those tubs were the exact Pantone match as the Target shelf. And it was like, oh my God, like, how did this happen? Like it was like pardon my French, like an oh shit moment where it was like, oh, and so we're like, these aren't going to move. We camouflaged our own packaging. They look like floating letters. Like we had all these things. And we immediately set out, we hired a branding agency. Like we set out to get differentiated packaging, which we ended up doing. That first year was scary. It was really hard. We were in 300 doors. We had to figure out how to get the product to move. That's where like product matters because people loved the product. The packaging didn't do it justice, but the product was good enough and different enough. And you have to be able to communicate that on your packaging. So to round it all out, the retail steps are: I picked the wave, I have product market fit. Now I'm able to communicate what makes us different clearly and concisely on packaging. The packaging can even be ugly, but as long as it's communicating how you're different in an effective way, now you're ready to have those conversations with retailers. If you've done those things, you got to network, get in front of the right people. But if you have those things, you will be in a good place with retailers.
Oh, so many gems. This is so great.
Yeah, that was our biggest, that was a big mess up.
I mean,
So
you're a
we were
great
lucky.
storyteller too. The highs and lows. I need a minute to.
Yeah, that was bad.
All right. Well, let's roll into question and answer. We've got some great questions in the chat. I think a couple of them have been answered, Dan, just by way of you telling a little bit about your Target journey. But all that to say, let's roll in. One question from Amy. This is a great one. I don't have any trouble we're talking to guests who are in my age set. How do I talk, though, to different generations of customers? What are your tips, Dan? Like, how do you think about bridging that gap between like Gen Z, Millennial, X? I think that's such a great question.
I obviously, like in marketing, we're working towards, target customers and customer archetypes, and certain channels and certain content is more relatable to different generation. I mean, if you look at our brand, we're clearly like a Gen Zennial type brand. We're heavy on TikTok. However, like some of our best customers are older. And it's just, you never know. I think a certain percentage, like, you don't want to go too heavy into the lifestyle marketing anyway, where people are forgetting what you're selling. And so if you're keeping your content anchored in the problem and solution that your product brings, even if your content might be like tailored more for like a 25-year-old on TikTok, if the problem and solution is clear, it'll resonate with anybody who has that problem, independent of the identity you're trying to reach with the content. And so I think just really focusing on problem and solution, why your product needs to exist, is the type of content that can span generations or demographics or geography or whatever segmentation you're looking at.
That's great. One question from Rondell, and this is for the two of you. As you think about networking, and let's say, you know, I'm a founder after this event, Spencer, I'm going to connect with you. I'm going to connect with you, Dan. How do you think about transitioning or leveraging those connections into a possible target buyer meeting?
I've been to a lot of trade shows. I think probably some of you we've met in the past. And I stick to the marathon versus before it's a sprint piece. Have patience. Yes, I'm advocating. We're doing what we can. Filling out the supplier intake form enables us to have an equitable conversation with our merchants. But mass retail is mass retail. There's going to be opportunities that merchandising strategy aligns with you, and there's an immediate connection, or it takes time for them to see the opportunity. To your point, Dan, like 3 seconds on shelf. People come, they buy it. They come, they don't buy it. But then also, as you think about the wave and going back to that previous question, it does make a difference. If your key market is aligned with our key market, then that will be the first step into Target. But there also is moments where your product is not meant for everybody, and that's okay. As you think about growing your target or your consumer pool, stick to who you're talking to. Don't try to flood it. Don't try to oversaturate. Don't try to change to gain more, because mass retail can put you out of business if it's done improperly. And so to your question, patience is key, but when the alignment happens, there will be movement.
I'll just be, you don't want to be in a buyer's inbox. That's a scary, scary place. Like, you need to find a way that is not emailing the buyer. I've heard from our buyers who I've developed great relationships with over the years, the amount and number of emails they get is insane. So you just got to find a way to not be in the inbox. Networking is really important. You know, buyers hearing from their friends like, "Oh, you really should talk to this brand. I love their products." Like, that's super powerful. Remember, buyers are individuals too. So find them on LinkedIn, you know, drip content on LinkedIn that they might be able to see, like, find them on Instagram, like have your brand follow their personal Instagram account, like try to sneak in that way. Like, you got to get scrappy creative, because there are a sea of people trying to get in. And, you know, I'm looking at these categories, you know, hair care, like there are a lot of great entrepreneurs, great companies, but if you can, again, like have that differentiation and then have the hustle, you'll find a way. You'll find a way, but you got to have the hustle.
Keep the hustle alive. That's what shows that you're ready for that long marathon. And then, this is a Target shameless plug, we're creating those processes, and hopefully whether it's partnering with RangeMe or our own supplier intake form, giving us an avenue for you to showcase your capabilities to eliminate the subjectivity, but then allow that hustle to showcase, like, yeah, I do like that brand. Yes, I like that brand, but does everyone? Does that consumer like it? So if we can pair those two together, that's a perfect match. And so don't be afraid of what seems like a black hole filling out the forms, because at some point that is reviewed to enable you to shine. And so I wanted to stress that as well.
Okay, I'm going to write that down on a Post-it and putting it on my laptop. Don't be afraid, no matter what your industry, no matter what your product, don't be afraid. I love that. This is a good follow-up question from Ramona regarding social media. Dan, did you think about growing your business awareness through social media first, or by targeting companies like B2B that wanted to buy your products? Any advice on that topic? Spencer, this is open to you too.
We've gotten very good at social media, but that was not where we started. Again, like, we started very specifically with product, and then you got to find customers. The way we found customers was to launch on Amazon, where there are a lot of people. You know, I know it's a little bit of a competitor to Target, but I mean, it's just like,
We don't know who you're talking about. Sorry.
For all you entrepreneurs out there, if you're in a category that exists and your product is differentiated and better, there are a lot of customers on Amazon actively shopping with marketing tactics that have a more direct return. So, you know, Amazon search, PPC, like, so what we did was we had a product that we felt really strongly about and we felt like it was better. And we got it on Amazon where there was a base of existing customers. We got the business going that way and then started doing social media. The problem when you're early with social media is it takes a lot of time and sometimes a lot of money to manage an account really well, but there isn't necessarily a direct ROI in terms of generating new sales. And that is a really tricky thing to balance. And so if you can do it yourself, like Pat and I like didn't have Instagram accounts, like we're bad millennials. So like there was no way we were going to be able to do that on our own. Pat still doesn't have an Instagram account actually. Like we had to, we got the business going, then found people to help with social media. If you can do it on your own and it doesn't cost you anything and you're a natural at it, yeah, by all means do it, but you still got to figure out how you're going to get customers, how you're going to sell the product. It's not necessarily the magic bullet for that.
I think that's great advice. One question from Yoki. This is one I think that's definitely worth taking a beat to respond to. As a potential new vendor at Target or elsewhere, how should I think about requesting a region or even going online before going nationwide? What should I be thinking about?
I
Great
love
question,
this.
Yoki.
Yeah, great question. Because the more conversations I have with buyers who are working with different partners like yourself, the data that you bring to the table creates a more fruitful conversation. It sets you up for success. We have our tools, you have your tools. How do we match them together to say this region, these stores? We have 2,000 plus stores. We can push and pull where we need to, but if you don't have the data, then there's nothing for you to bring to the table to say, don't put me there, or I'd like for you to do this, and here's why. I never thought I'd be this person, but like data. Like it has become the way that we're able to survive, because I say never say never, but in a design role, I was always about the people. The data for me was insights. So now using the insights and the numbers, put those together, you can create an amazing proposal, and all of it creates a conversation. And so yes, aim small, miss small is something I always say, because if you go too big and you're in the wrong stores, then you're going to pay for that misplacement. So have that fruitful conversation, come with your data, come with your proposals, because that's what drives good business.
I'll second that, and I'm going to plug the Target team here. I'm always like, how about instead of 300, how about 500? Instead of, I'm always just working the angle. And our buyer was like, Target has an amazing segmentation capability if they understand your product and so if you bring the data, you can, trust Target if they're telling you we're bought into this, we have our rollout plan. So we went into 300 and then our products kind of crushed it in 300. And I was like, all right, how about 1,000? And then they were like, Dan, 500. And I'm like, okay. I'm always pushing. It took, kind of like 3 resite cycles. Now, like supplements, national is 1,200 doors. We're going to be in those 1,200 doors. But we've done very well each step along the way. And Target had a process for us based on their data, and it absolutely worked. So I kind of stopped asking for more doors. I mean, not really, but kind of, because Target has really good data. You have to bring them the data as to what they need to be paying attention to. And then from the segmentation Target does on their stores is incredible. So, I mean, Target has a really nuanced way at looking at where your product can succeed. You should listen to them because they know.
Oh, that's so great. And I would just say too, at Target Accelerators, we don't just talk about scaling. We always use the phrase scale for success, which really implies that meaningful, deliberate, thoughtful, strategic scaling can ultimately get to whatever your version of success looks like. It certainly, as Dan's mentioned, it doesn't happen overnight. And certainly we want to be a part of your journey as Target Accelerators to help you meet your goals and to scale for success, whatever that might mean for you. All that to say, I'm going to pass the mic to Dan and Spencer one more time in just a second to leave us with some final parting advice. But remember that our support of your brand doesn't start and end today. We want to encourage you to tell us, where is your brand growing? What milestones have you met? We want to be able to match you with exciting opportunities, with connections and invite-only events like this one. So please, please, please click that or scan that QR code, update your supplier intake form today. I would also mention too, the information that we have on the back end Our internal Target teams review that daily. I almost wish I didn't, but I do, as Spencer does. We are constantly reviewing brand information to make sure that we are supplying you with the best opportunities we can. So please consider that a to-do before the end of week. Thank you. Next slide, please. All that to say, Erica is going to be putting a link to our post-event survey in the chat. Please fill that out. And I feel like this is a big moment. If you fill it out, you will be automatically entered to win a drawing for a one-on-one business coaching session with a member of our expert Target team. That's right. You'll get a one-on-one moment, a meeting with a member of our team. You can get all of your burning questions to them. They will coach you. They're happy to look at your business plan, maybe help you with that pitch deck. This is your opportunity to get that one-on-one. Guys, this is not something that we're able to offer to all brands, but this is your chance to get in the door with our member of our Target team. So please today, and we'll also send a follow-up email, please send out that post-event survey. Let us know what you thought. These events are meant for you. They're curated for you. They are truly something that we design with you in mind. So let us know what you thought, what we can do better. And remember too, please read Accelerator Insider. That's our free monthly newsletter packed with lots of information. I can tell you this summer, we've got a lot of content on deck that speaks to some of the questions that we saw in the chat. And also keep your eye on your inbox because we've got more of these exclusive events, invitation only opportunities for you on deck. So all that to say, lightning round, Spencer, Dan, what is one piece of advice you'd like to leave founders with today?
To go back on the name of this, retail fundamentals, and also go back to the soccer because I'm just so excited about it. I played all my life. The fundamentals get you far. And if you're a soccer player or not, if you can't make a one-touch pass, if you can't see the vision left and right, you're not going to go far. And so really hone in and think about the fundamentals, foundationally build your brand to enable you to continue to grow in your business. Scaling for success is definitely one of those things, but you got to start with a very solid foundation and fundamentally building your team so everyone has the same values, has the same vision, and you're marching towards the same place. So commit to that. If anything, commit to that starting today.
All right. Thank you, Spencer. Dan the man, you're up. Final piece of advice for founders.
Yeah, I think being an optimistic realist is the most important thing for entrepreneurs. You have to have that blind optimism to like give you that energy to always be selling and tell your story and share your vision and take on the world. But you have to be realistic about where you are, what your wave is, where your product is. If you're not realistic about where you are, it's really hard to address the things that are holding you back. And addressing, really being honest and identifying the things that are holding you back and then addressing those things will give you a ton of clarity in how you prioritize and run your business. And that's really, really hard for an entrepreneur to do. I encourage you to work with other founders, other mentors who can give you a realistic point of view of where you are. It's invaluable to hear that feedback and be able to manage your business. And I think if you can address those things that are holding you back it can be a very powerful tool for growth that people don't talk about a lot.
Oh, amazing. Honestly, I shouldn't have used a red pen. This is really bad. I have so many great notes.
Very on brand with the Target colors, even the pens are red.
True. Thank you everyone for joining us. Dan, Spencer, founders. We will send a recording of this event straight to your inbox in the next couple of days. Please remember to fill out your post-event survey. We're here to support you. Remember to take up space, to live out your dreams, and be bold. We appreciate you. Thank you. Have a great rest of the day and week. Take care, everybody.